Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Vorse. Before we talk about today's topic, just a brief announcement in regard to our Vortex from a couple of days ago. You may recall we focused on a program called Faith Shared, in which various religious leaders from different faiths go to each other's houses of worship and share from their own scriptures. We highlighted one example of this happening in a Jesuit parish in Charlotte, North Carolina. The parish is St. Peter's. When word of this reached Bishop Peter Jugas, the program was canceled at the parish. A Muslim imam had been scheduled to come to the parish and share from the Quran. Not anymore. God bless Bishop Peter Jugas. Say a prayer for him at the end of this vortex. Now on to today's topic, which is one that is very sad for me personally. Like so many Catholics, my roots reach back to Ireland. The Catholic faith of so many millions of Americans stretch back to the Emerald Isle. It was not all that long ago, certainly in living memory of many, many people watching right now, that Ireland was a bastion of the faith. Not anymore, not by a long shot. The Archbishop of Ireland has even publicly announced this reality. This past weekend, he publicly said there has been, his words now, a revolution of its religious culture. Mass attendance is dismal. This year, there will be no ordinations to the priesthood, and most alarmingly, the youth have simply tuned out. Ireland was perhaps arguably more than any other country in Europe the shining jewel in the church's crown. It was the country that sent more priests and Catholic immigrants to America than any other nation. The faith was as solid as a rock, unmovable, entrenched. The air practically smelled of incense. And this was as recently as just 50 years ago. Today, it's almost as if the country had never known the faith. How did this happen? It isn't enough to say that the secular culture overwhelmed the church. That's becoming a kind of cop-out that we're hearing more and more from church leaders. Remember, in the days of the empire, it was the church that overwhelmed the secular culture. We Catholics went from being food for lions, to the missionaries, to the barbarians, to the establishers of Western civilization. The church became the culture. So to hear the kind of weak and lame excuse that the secular culture just overwhelmed the church rings very hollow. What the reality is that when the secular evil began to increase to violent proportions, church leaders did not muster the troops and ready them for the coming war. In fact, in Ireland and most of the West, including the United States, many church leaders, meaning bishops, theologians, priests, nuns, not only refused to stand against it, they actually joined it. Their treachery, and it was absolutely treachery, cost the church hundreds and hundreds of millions of faithful. For 50 years and counting, in a supreme act of cowardice, rebellious and disobedient bishops advanced their own thoughts and opinions and disregarded the truth of the faith. They substituted lies and half-truths for the beauty of the faith, and now they are reaping the ugliness of their actions and their predecessors' actions. A shining example in Ireland itself is retired Bishop William Walsh. In a newspaper interview shortly after he retired, he speaks of his extreme doubt about core holdings of the faith, like the divinity of Christ and women's ordination. The bishop seems unsteady about his belief in the afterlife as well. Unsurprisingly, he is a big advocate for social justice. Yeah, because we haven't had enough people running around the church twisting her teachings on social justice lately. And we've attached a link to the article right over here. If you want to get depressed, please read it. We're not saying Bishop William Walsh caused the collapse of the faith in Ireland, but it would be unfair to not point out that he was certainly part of the problem, as well as other bishops who aren't as public as he has been about his doubts of the faith. A man like this should have the integrity to step down from office when he's plagued by doubts on such a basic level. He lost the faith, and that disqualifies him from leading hundreds of thousands of faithful. But Bishop Walsh's case is not singular. He just at least had the courage to admit it. When you look at the destruction of the faith that has happened all across Western civilization, it is simply obvious that too many bishops either no longer believe the faith or certainly do not believe it enough. They do not believe it enough to stand up and face down the culture. There are simply too many traitors and cowards in their ranks. Treachery and cowardice are signs that love has left. Love of Christ, love for his sheep. And when love leaves, evil comes in quickly. There are many symptoms, many symptoms and signs of the collapse of the faith that has happened over the past 50 years in Europe and North America and Australia. From Catholic universities betraying the faith, to the sex abuse crisis, to the perversion of one church teaching after another, and the rapid advancement of the homosexual agenda at almost every level of the church. None of these are the causes, however. They are all symptoms of a weak and career-minded, selfish episcopacy that thinks of themselves first before Christ and his church. It matters little what their individual motives may be. Some are sexually immoral, others want to climb the career ladders, others have plans to remake the church into some radicalized instrument of social reform. None of that matters. What does matter is that too many bishops over the past 50 years have betrayed their high office. Thankfully, it appears we are seeing some signs here and there, ever so slightly, that things may be turning around. But any truthful assessment would have to admit that the good guys are still vastly outnumbered. As long as this situation remains, change will be very slow, and the revolution, as the Archbishop in Ireland admitted, will continue to chug along. Pray for your bishop, your local bishop, right now. Say a Hail Mary that he will develop a martyr-like love for Christ and his church. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.
Please help us keep delivering these kinds of messages that so desperately need to be heard and acted on. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber. Become immersed in the faith established by Jesus Christ. The Catholic Church is the only hope against evil because that is its God-given mission. As our Lord said, apart from me, you can do nothing. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber and come to learn and love Christ more deeply.